Hey, welcome back to the Peculiar Ones podcast, where you're going to get to listen to part 2 of Miss DeAnna Christmas's story. If you were there last week or if you heard part 1, we ended it right where she had to learn a tough lesson. It's the Milo theology. Her dog is called Milo. I've met Milo a couple times, a little cutesy, where she, Milo had to learn walk or be dragged, as did Miss DeAnna Christmas, as I have had to learn a couple of times, and maybe you're right in the middle of a good dragon, or maybe you're in the middle of a walk. Wherever you're at, you're going to enjoy part 2 of Miss DeAnna Christmas. Fantastic. That's fantastic. So you, it's interesting, and why I asked the question.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were 12? Because I'm starting to learn from people that have done peculiar things, outstanding things in life, where they've left a mark or are learning how to embrace this thing called freedom and entering this life of abundance and joy. And it's never easy, but it's purposeful, it's rewarding, it's, you are close to the Creator and close to what He's got you walking the earth for.
Right.
There's something amazing about that.
Right.
And you said at 12, I want to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. And here you are, all the way through IBM, mentoring. Mm-hmm. You teach everywhere you go, and always have.
It is, yeah. And it's so funny you should say that, because just this last week I was teaching a class, some chaplain interns. Uh-huh. And I've always been a teacher wherever I go. Even with my kids will tell you a frustrating teacher, because as a kid, before the internet and you could Google everything, they would say, Mom, how do you spell, pick a word, how do you spell philosophy? And I'd say the first 3 letters are, here's the dictionary.
Teach them how to.
Can't you just tell me? I could.
Yeah.
But the first 3 letters are, I'll give you a start, and now go learn how to use a dictionary so that you can find any word that you need. Sound it out. Uh-huh.
Before the dictionary app.
Yes. I want you to develop the skills that are good. And
Nikisha became a writer.
Yes, she's a phenomenal writer.
Yeah.
And if you're a writer, write.
Yeah. Right.
So,
if you're a dreamer, dream.
Yeah.
If you're a teacher, teach.
She'd be a great person for your podcast.
She's on my list.
Right.
And she works at Facebook, so I can't invite her to do my podcast because the selfishness in me would say, so Nikisha, how do we bump this thing up in the Facebook?
Oh, yeah, no. So, yeah.
No, but she's fantastic. Brilliant.
She's both of my kids. Mm-hmm. They're just...
Mm-hmm. I remember an 8-hour conversation I had with Nikisha coming from Mexico. We're all sleeping. Everybody's asleep, and she's shotgun in the van. There's 15 people behind me, and they're sleeping, and it's 100 degrees, and we're coming up I-5. And she was 16 or 17 at the time playing basketball, baller.
Yeah.
And she wrote this thing and read it, and I went, what? And here I had one of the greatest conversations probably in my youth ministry career on I-5 with this woman.
Yes.
That was like 40.
Yes.
She's
amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Well, it comes from all of what you instilled in them, and then them embracing that.
Well, and let me say about that, I think it is, there's a saying I have, a fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Mm-hmm. It may roll a little bit, but it doesn't get far. And it's not just what I instilled in them, it's what Joanne instilled in me.
Who's Joanne?
Joanne's my mother. Oh. It's what Beatrice, her mother, instilled in her. And then my great-grandmother. We stand on the shoulders of some amazing and phenomenal women. Mm-hmm. These are women who, when people, like right now in our country, and I'm not going to get too political, I just want to say in our country right now, people complain about the political climate and in our world how bad things are. My grandmother died in 2016. She lived to be 101. My other grandmother died, she lived to be 89. I can't remember the exact year she died. When I look at those 2 women, right, they lived through World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Civil War, the Vietnam War, 9/11. the assassination of Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy and Malcolm X.
Vietnam.
They lived through. My grandmother, the one who lived to be 89, grew up in Mississippi.
Wow. Mississippi.
I
Now,
mean,
you said the Civil War, so you're talking about that was the 101-year-old?
No, the 100. I didn't say the Civil. Did I? If I said the Civil War, I didn't mean
civil
it.
rights.
Yeah, it meant civil rights. I'm sorry, the civil rights movement. And I look at that and I say, okay, guys, we may be going through something now.
Come on.
But these women,
Yeah.
they have lived through this and so much more, and not just lived through it, they thrive through it.
Kept who they were at their core.
And they had joy. My one grandmother, who lived to be 101, she started playing tennis at the age of 50 in Los Altos, and she was a black woman.
On a tennis court.
On a tennis court in Los Altos, Palo Alto, California.
At what year-ish? 60s?
So if she was 50, I can't call the right year, but I mean, I think so. When I was 8, it would be in the 60s. Right.
Serena Williams.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She did get to meet Serena one time, which is and she continued playing tennis till she was 90.
Wow.
The thing about that is like you talk about a peculiar one. She's going to go learn a sport where there aren't a lot of black people. No. This is not our sport, right? No. And it's the love of her life, and she's going to do it. And you couldn't tell her she couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so when there were problems about, where she could or couldn't play, she just started managing her own tournaments. Okay, well then I'll hold a tournament and manage it myself.
See, today there's a culture of just complaining about stuff.
Oh no.
No, we just go right around. We just go right around.
Yeah. So this is what I love doing. I'm gonna figure out how to go do it. I'm not gonna just sit there and say, well, somebody told me I can't do it.
Or try to bring down the system. I'm just gonna go be the example.
Right.
Just gonna go do my life.
And so we stand on the shoulders of these
people.
Women and greatly peculiar and wonderful women. Yeah.
Going upstream.
All the time.
Tell me about your new wave, being a chaplain. What's that deal?
Oh my gosh. So I'm presently a hospice chaplain. And what that deal is, when I went to seminary, I had no idea what I was going to be doing. This was the next step. And sometimes there's an author, I think her name is Stormy O'Meriton. She wrote a book that's called Just Enough Light for the Step You're On. Sometimes God says, this is the step. I'm not showing you the whole path.
Sometimes?
Most times. This is the step. Take this step, and once you take this step, I'll show you the next step. But just take this step. Because if I showed you the whole path...
You wouldn't go.
Well, I probably wouldn't go, and we'd have a big conversation, even bigger conversation, God and I, right? So getting into seminary, the interesting thing was there are many things that you can do coming out of seminary. You can go work for a nonprofit, be a congregational minister, spiritual direction, chaplaincy, professor, evangelist, missionary, so many different things. Or go back to work in the corporate world and, wherever you go, you're going to be letting your life shine. So I decided to do a residency as a chaplain intern when I was in seminary. And the first day I was there, I knew I was home. It was...
And how old are you at this point?
53.
Yeah, and you went...
And I was like, this is it. This is a bringing together of my love of teaching, my love of listening, my love of learning, my love of the medical world. So here I am back in the medical world, right? Where I thought I was going to be a physician or a doctor, but it was really all along that I was going to be a chaplain, and I needed all these life experiences to bring along the way. And so what I do now is I help people live through the dying process.
Help people live
through the dying process.
What's that look like?
It's walking with people, and it's almost like, say you went for, if you're on hospice, it's most likely if your disease process takes its course or wherever you are in the aging process that you'll die within 6 months based on what we know as humans, right? And so what I often say to people is, but you're not dead yet, right? So you're still alive.
So what are we going to do today?
So what are we going to do?
Yeah.
What do you want to do with this time that you have? You know your time is shorter than other people, or we think. And most times that's true. But what do you want to do with your time? And so my role is to help give people emotional support and spiritual support while they're living in this precious time.
What a question to ask yourself when you're 20.
Oh my gosh.
What a question to ask yourself when you're 50, when you're 33 with a 2-year-old and a pregnant, what a question.
What do you want to do
with your time?
What do you want to do with your time? Are you doing with your time what you want to do with your time? People, it's so interesting. When I tell people I'm a hospice chaplain, they go, that must be hard. It's not hard. It's because it's who I am. And the other thing that's not hard about that's the biggest lesson out of it is that it causes me to live differently.
Yep.
I'm constantly asking myself now, first of all, are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? And if you were on your deathbed right now, would that thing or that person that's taking up all of your energy be worth giving all your energy to? And if it's not, purge it.
Yep. You know, I was in Children's Hospital in 75 and 6 and went there to die. I had an uncurable disease.
Wow.
Yep. And I think that season where I had the machine and the beep and the priest comes in and does the last rites and I'm in like shutting down, that was one of the best motivators for me because I was acutely aware this party could end at any time.
Anytime.
At 12 years old.
Wow.
And still to this day, I go, can you believe it? I got another day. Because I was the guy that had the whole thing without even knowing who God was.
Right.
And that's what you did with 12-year-old kids. And, you know, it's like, so I'm very much in touch with what you're saying. Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing?
Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Are you traveling with the people you should be traveling with? I mean...
You know, I love 53 years old.
Yep.
You found your home. I think that a lot of people, myself included, was very frustrated at 40, at 30, at 50, because I wasn't in the game long enough yet. And I think everything's like this today.
Right.
And there's something to grandma who took up tennis at 50.
Right.
And here we are. It's like, you got to stay in the game. You know, everybody thinks all these athletes just showed up because we never heard of them. You know, they've been doing this since they were 4. That's a lot to go into getting your place at home.
Well, and the other thing about it is our society, not only do they want things like this, but they want to see the planting, the growing, and the harvest all like this.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not for us to see the harvest.
It's your grandkids yet unborn can stand on your shoulders.
Exactly. And the place where I learned this the best, and you based on your background, you could probably fill in the gaps more than me. You know, Queen Hatshepsut.
Yep. Hatshepsut.
Hatshepsut, right? Hatshepsut. And when I traveled to Israel and went to all these places that are thousands and thousands of years old, right? And also traveled in Egypt, the thing that was most amazing to me was to hear about somebody say, well, the architect of this particular temple was this person. They designed it. It started being built and they died and it wasn't completed for another 80 years or some
100 years, 200
whatever.
Years. Yep.
So, but the thing that you saw there was the person who designed and even the people who started building oftentimes never saw this thing that they had envisioned come to fruition.
Yep.
But because people were willing to put in hundreds of years and do the long haul work, all those things are still standing thousands of years later.
3,800 years that temple's
you know what I'm saying?
Unbelievable, yeah.
But now when we build things today, we build them so fast. A lot of these things
and disposably
come and go within our lifetimes, and we don't have that long-term legacy.
Nope.
So it's important to know that I don't know how I went on this detour, but it's important to know that some of the things that I'm doing, or some of the things that I'm called to do, it's not just for me. And I may not see the harvest. What I'm called to do is work in the garden. Just get out there and do the gardening.
Pull a weed, plant a seed, bring some water, nurture, prune.
And first of all, in my own life, and allow God to do that in my own life. And the extent to which I'm willing to do that in my own life and in my own heart, then that models that for others. And then encourage others to do the same and pass it on.
And so you're coming into these environments as an angel and just blessing the socks off of people that never even met you. That's what you are.
That like sounds so big.
It's what it is. It's what it is. Think about it. That's what you are. You are the voice and the presence of the Creator who knitted that man or woman together in their mama's womb that you never met. And here you are at the end of their days, reminding them what matters.
Yeah.
Is that not, that's what?
It is.
Stately. It's gravitas. It's gigantic.
There aren't words for it sometimes. And every once in a while, there are these moments where, this is another thing just I think about living, that just reminding people, reminding myself, we don't live on the mountaintops all the time.
Rarely.
Yeah. We cycle through the valleys, right? But when we have those mountaintop experiences, we hold on to them as a reminder. So when I'm in the valley, I know that I'm seen by God. And when I'm in the mountaintops, I get to look back and see, oh, look what God created. But neither one is better than the other. It's just all part of the experience. And
I look at your life and I look at so many valleys.
Yeah.
And so much hard and plowing and grinding and and to look at you now, and you're just getting going.
Well, and that's this one minister I heard recently. He said, just remember, just because your younger days are behind you doesn't mean that your best days aren't before you. And that's that thing of, like you say, stay in the game long enough. And not expect that everything's going to be. What if all this? And I do believe I had this moment about a year ago where I thought, everything that I've ever been through in my life has brought me to this moment. Everything. And I wouldn't be the chaplain that I am today if I didn't have all those moments. I wouldn't see the things, all those, even the dumb decisions, even the decisions that caused me pain or caused others pain. That taught me how to forgive myself, to receive God's forgiveness, to, when I got hurt, how to forgive others, so that when I'm sitting with people in their dying weeks and months and they're struggling with forgiveness, I can talk about it. I don't have to share my story, but you're a guide. You can speak about this principle of forgiveness with authenticity.
And you've been there.
I've been there.
Yep.
So you're not just talking about it theoretically.
No.
And you can say, I know this is painful.
Yep. Heard this great quote. There's something about knowing what to say, and there's another thing about having something to say.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes the thing that we have to say is silence. And simply, I know. You don't have to tell the whole story, but somebody can look in your eyes and say, they know that you know. And that gives them the strength to do what needs to be done in this moment.
Wow. See why you're on my short list?
Oh, you're so funny.
Nope. Hey, I want to know, what are you most proud of?
I am most proud of.
You see that Coast Guard rescue
Yeah,
helicopter?
I hope everybody's okay. I am most proud of being a mom to two beautiful children.
Wow.
One of the things that we do as chaplains is because I don't ask my patients to do anything that I haven't done. And so somewhere along the line in chaplaincy training, you're often asked to write your own obituary.
Wow.
So as you're contemplating, what has my life meant?
Right.
And is there anything that I would want to change? And so when I first wrote my obituary a couple years ago, my concluding line is, my legacy is my children. And all you have to do is look in their eyes and you'll know everything that you need to know about me.
Wow.
They are what I am most proud of.
Do they know that?
I've told them, I don't know if they know it like deeply down in their bones. Sometimes I wonder. But it is, I try to tell them, I try to show them, and that's it.
You've always been so honest with both your kids, watching you raise them as their youth pastor and
Yeah.
you as a single mom before I really knew you.
Yeah.
And you were always truthful, always loving, always saying the hard thing for their benefit.
Man, that hard thing is hard to say. Ooh. And I got that from my dad. My dad, Ken Christmas, he told me once, my job is not to be your friend, it's to be your father. Wow. I was like, whoa.
He's still alive?
He's still alive.
Yeah. Who's your hero?
Oh, so this is going to sound like super duper cliche, but my hero is Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Man, Jesus was an amazing dude. He did the hard stuff. He said the hard stuff. He walked the lonely road. And he did it for others. I wonder, when he cried, and when he sweat, it was tears of blood, and sweat of blood. And
pressure.
I've never sweat blood or cried blood to my knowledge, but I've cried some rough tears, some hard tears. And so just to know, but here we are all these years later, thousands of years later, and the impact that he had on the earth for 33 years because he was willing to walk that hard road. And that's an example that it's big shoes to and I know I'll never
well,
I'll never
be Jesus. He says you're going to do more amazing things than I am. Than I did.
Yeah, and yet that's what draws me. That's what draws me. And that he's my hero. People ask me all the time, so what are you? Like religiously, are you how do you, what label do you put on yourself, right? And I just say I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm doing the best that I can
for other people in his name, which means in his example and his agreement.
Yeah.
And his blessing.
So, and when I screw it up, try to ask for forgiveness and do better the next time.
And that's what you learned at IBM, which is perfect.
Good is good enough.
Good is good enough.
Right?
That's good theology.
Good is good enough.
And that's not Milo theology or puzzle theology.
No.
But it's a good word.
Yeah. I've got good works for you to do.
Yep.
Right?
And it's good enough. And watch what I do with it.
And I'm going to do good works through your brokenness. You're like a jar of clay that's not perfect, right? So, okay, if you say, Jesus, you can take me in my brokenness and I can go and I don't have to be perfect, let me get up and let me move and let me go do.
You're an amazing woman.
Oh, I'm going to receive that.
Good.
Thank you.
But you are an amazing woman. I have 2 more questions.
I'm ready.
Whose voice are you listening to currently, and what are they saying? Or what's it saying?
Oh, like in terms of
Well, whatever. Whose voice are you listening to, and what is it saying? Your negative self, a distant cousin, a bad neighbor, whose voice are you currently listening to? And what are they saying?
So, there's a that's oh my. So I've got voices on both shoulders, and I have a orchestra of voices in my life. Mm-hmm. That would be a great way of maybe not an orchestra. There's I'm glad you can edit this. So whose voices am I listening to? I have a voice on my shoulder that's an internal voice for me that is not always kind. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing my best to befriend that person and hear what they have to say and then evaluate whether or not that's truth and just be in dialogue. Mm-hmm. It's I heard a term, invite your fears to tea, right? So I've got this very fearful voice in my internal self mm-hmm. that shows up quite a bit. And I've invited her to sit down and let's have a dialogue, and we're trying to work through some things. But the way that I work through those things is to have her in dialogue with some other voices. Mm-hmm. One, the voice of God. Mm-hmm. And predominantly the voice of God who says, man, is that what I say about you? I mean, I hear what you're saying, but is that what I told you? Does that line up with,
what really is what's happening?
And then the other is I have a posse in my life. I call them my posse. I've got a diaspora of friends who I engage with regularly in dialogue.
Real friends
who listen to that voice on my shoulder and help challenge me about whether or not what I'm interpreting is truth mm-hmm. as it lines up with God's mm-hmm. who God says mm-hmm. I am. Mm-hmm. So I am so thankful for those friends because you got to have, Jesus had his 12 mm-hmm. and then he had his inner circle, mm-hmm. right?
3.
His 3. I've got my 3 or 4 mm-hmm. that are on speed dial in my phone. Mm-hmm. And one of the other voices that I have been listening to a lot is Brene Brown. Mm-hmm. And one thing Brene says is we should all have a 1 by 1 inch square of people. So take a 1 by 1 inch square, she suggests in one of her writings, and write down the names of the people whose voices matter. Mm-hmm. And they should be people who are in the arena, who are doing life.
Yeah, not on the sidelines.
Not on the sidelines thinking about it theoretically, but they're actually trying to do the things that you're trying to do, have the same beliefs and values that you have. And if there are more people than that, then you can write on that 1 by 1 inch square, you've probably got too many people. Mm-hmm. So, those are the people that you call mm-hmm. when you're in those moments where you're struggling with mm-hmm. whatever other voices mm-hmm. or decisions or mm-hmm. things like that. So I've got those people on that mm-hmm. 1 by 1 inch square.
So do you write large or small?
I kind of write regular. It's 3 or 4 people.
Yeah.
And they know who they are.
Yeah. And, that's important that they know who they are.
They know who they are.
Yeah, that's good.
And I always got to be careful because some of my friends will say, well, am I on the list? It's mm-hmm. like, if you have to ask.
Yeah. You're not on the list.
I mean, really? Don't make me answer that question, right? But I mean, especially.
But you know what? That doesn't mean you don't care for and love those folks that aren't on that list.
Exactly.
As equal, if not more, some of them.
Exactly.
We're just not in the same platform. We're not in the same space in life.
And at this moment.
At this moment in this season.
At this moment in this
wave,
season.
on this wave.
Right. Because when I call those 3 or 4 people, I need to be able to be my absolute authentic, uncensored grimy self. Yep. And know that my heart's not going to be trampled on. Yep. I'm not going to get judged. Yeah. And that they can speak truth to me in a way.
For your sake.
Yes. They're not afraid. They're not going to tell me what I want to hear. They're mm-hmm. going to tell me the hard things. Mm-hmm. But they're going to tell me in love, and we're probably going to end up laughing about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Last question.
Ready.
Are you really?
I don't know.
I told you this would be easy.
Yeah.
Because you're a fantastically peculiar person.
I am peculiar.
And you go upstream when everybody else is going downstream. And I love that about you. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? The hardest thing you've ever done?
Be a parent.
Didn't even have to think about it.
No. The hardest thing I've ever done is be a parent.
Mm-hmm. When was the hardest?
I don't think there's an ever wow. There have been specific seasons that have been difficult. I think the most difficult thing about being a parent is walking this fine line between what is helping and what is enabling. And there are times when I've had to make decisions I don't have to do anything but be black and die, I'll say that. But there are times when I've made decisions as a mother where one of my children has asked me to do something, and I've said no. And I've said no because I think that was the most loving and most beneficial thing for them to do. Mm-hmm. And then I have to walk through the season after that, not only make that decision, implement that decision, and then walk through the season as they might struggle with my decision.
Yep, or be angry about it.
And
disagree.
And there was one particular time where, I made a decision, and it resulted in maybe, a temporary break in our relationship where, I've had
those are painful.
I've had this with my own parents where I'd be irritated with my parents and, I'm not talking to you for a while. And as a parent on the other side of that, I think it's the same thing with God. It doesn't change God's mind about, God with Samuel said, how long are you going to mourn that I've rejected Saul as king? And when I hear God say that, God's saying, it ain't changing my mind. I just want to know when you're going to get over it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to sit up. I'm waiting for you to get over whatever your process is so we can move on. I haven't left you. I haven't abandoned you. I'm still here with you. But I'm just curious, how long are you going to go through this? And I think there are seasons, it's perfect for us as parents to know that when we make some of those decisions sometimes, our children may be grieving or hurting or angry. And I have to sit back and say, well, I'm just curious. And sometimes I won't even dare ask the question. I just sit in the silence and wait for that, like the prodigal son and the prodigal father, right? Mm-hmm. And how long? Mm-hmm. Those are the hardest times when I knew in my heart or believed in my heart that I was doing what God called me to do as a parent, but it was not going to be easy in the relating between me and my children. And no, I as a parent, those times of brokenness are very hard. But it's just like with the butterfly. If you cut a butterfly when it's trying to break out of a cocoon, if you cut the cocoon, it will never fly because the liquid won't go into its wings. Mm-hmm. And there have been times in my children's life where I've said, just like the butterfly, and the butterfly has to struggle through some things. I acknowledge that my not intervening or doing what you're asking of me right now is going to cause you some struggle.
Mm-hmm. You know what I love about you? I love a lot about you. You've always, in my knowing you, I don't know everything about you, done the best thing in your estimation.
Yeah.
After thoughtful, prayerful consideration, you've always leaned towards the best thing, not the easy thing. And that, my friend, makes you very peculiar. And I'm just honored that you would even join us here for this hour. And I sat at your feet and you taught me and reminded me of some things that I had forgotten and taught me some new things that I want to apply to my life as I figure out how to become the masterpiece God's created me to be. You've always encouraged me. You've always blessed me. And I'm just delighted that you're here in our home and here with my new friends on what they call the internet, which you were a part of making happen.
Yep.
And I want you just to know that you are a masterpiece. I'm glad to know.
It's my privilege.
And thanks for being peculiar and not being so worried about what people think of you, but what your Creator does.
It's been my privilege to be with you, and I just absolutely adore you. You inspire me.
Come on.
You inspire me to be a better me, and you better not edit that out.
I'm editing it out. Right when you said that, I said, that is out, sister. It's out.
Okay. God bless you, and thanks for having me.
So fun.
Okay.
Well, I told you you'd like my friend DeAnna Christmas, and now she's your friend. Hope you learned a few things about becoming that masterpiece you were created to be. If you like what we're doing here, subscribe, like, share, get into the game, man, and become that peculiar one you were created to be, that masterpiece since before time began. Peace.
A really bad